that is very precise and specific about this type of soil. And if they tend to go in a very full maturation, it became orange candy. And it is they are also spicy in terms of the notes. A lot of times they have this beautiful aspect of rosemary or Mediterranean herbs that is typically of Pietroforte, Macigno type of soils. And now we are moving in the young type of soil. So we are talking about soils that they have less than 5 millions. They are 20 millions younger than the first soils that we saw. And they are soils that are not coming from rocks. They come from sediment. So you have to think that the Africa was pushing Europe. You have the immersion of the rocks. And after that, the sea go away. And in the way to go away, put the deposit of clay, of sand. And that is the reason because we developed in top of the old soil, the young soils. The young soils are mostly related. You have two major differences between the inland part of Tuscany, like Montepulciano, where you have soils that are younger than the Chianti or Montalcino, where actually the type of soil that you have in Chianti Classico and in Montalcino are from the Pliocene epoch. So they have a couple of millions years more than the soil that you can find in the place where you are tonight, that they are from the Pleistocene. So let's start by seeing what you can have from the Pliocene. You can have two types of soil, sand and clay, and you can have a mix of clay and sand that in some specific areas is what we call plateau. Or in Montalcino we call canaliki. In terms to relate, and I will show you how the canaliki they were formed in Montalcino, and after that we will see the graphic how it is different type of soils they were developed. Sorry for this boring part, but I love and I think that it is very important to understand in terms to understand what is in the glass. Sand. Sand is has a yellow color. It's you can easily find it in the southwest of Montalcino. It's where the sea just arrived and they put the deposit of sand. It's a type of soil that have developed wines that are very light but very intensely perfumed with a unique orange peel character that is very distinctive of this type of soil. Very low amount of tannins and a very easy drinking style of wine. If you are in a clay, and it is the soil that you can find in the north part of Montalcino. I'm talking about Val di Cava area, and I'm talking the east part of Montalcino next to Casanova dei Neri, Cordella, or I'm talking about the old part of the extended part of Montalcino where you have Banfi and all the valley. These are the typical clay soils, so away from Montalcino. Or you can find in Montepulciano, in the hill of Montepulciano, also this typical type of soil, very gray-blue color. You develop wines that have a very strong gamey, meaty character. I come back because for me are very precise descriptor of Sangiovese in this type of soil. And you develop wines with a quite high level of tannins, and the tannins are quite harsh, quite dusty sometimes. It's a type of soil where usually Sangiovese stop and restart the growing season many times. And that's the most difficult type of soil to regulate the Sangiovese during the growing season. Because there are soils that are strongly related to the water availability, and they are strongly so related about the vintage. And after that you have the mix of sand and clay. That is a type of soil that you can find in Montalcino, like in Cervognano, or you can find in Le Gaggiole, or you can find in Montalcino in the Canaliki area. So where you have a mix of, you have on the bottom you have clay, and on the top you have some sediment of sand. These are a type of soil that are quite interesting because the sand that you have here is a little bit different that you have in Montalcino. The sand of Montalcino come from the top, come from the Pietraforte, so it's a very good sand. This is a maritime sand that is a little bit different. These are wines that are very elegant. The level of tannin is lower. As an area where you have a growing season that is much more regular, and the tannins look with a beautiful velvety and silkiness that is very typical of this type of soil. On the nose you have the combination of orange peel, more orange character, but you have also the red cherry, and the red cherry is very, very fresh. And there are wines that they look like they have a minerality in the palate that is different because they have a pH that is a little bit low, and the acidity is a little bit higher to compare to the others areas of Montalcino. Sandy soil is a soil where the acidity go down and the pH go up, and that is the reason because they are luscious. You have an impression that they are big wines, but they have the volume without the density inside. And now we move here, and finally we move to Montepulciano.
What is, if you're talking about pHs, what is the pH level between one and the other?
You can start in Chianti Classico and Alberese, that is the most alkaline type of soil with the most important amount of calcium carbonated. That is a type of wine that has 320, 325. In a warm vintage, 331, 332. And you move to Montepulciano or in this type of mix, or here, where you move up to 340, 345, 350. And 350 for a grape variety with Sangiovese is quite high, and the profile of the wine in the palate changed completely. And again, we are talking about minerality. The minerality that you have in the Chianti Classico is strongly related to the combination of tannins with acidity. Minerality doesn't come from the minerals from the stone. Minerality is a balance of different elements present into the wines, and the 2K are acidity and tannins. They are interacting very precisely. If you drink a wine that has a high acidity, it's always close in the second part of the palate. When you drink a wine with a very high pH and low acidity, it's giving you the volume. It sits on the palate. You know, probably it doesn't have the mid palate weight, but it's able to cover.
But you don't have any elements that we find in other parts of the world where your pHs are going up to 3.7 or 3.8.
No, there is no.
Doesn't exist.
But if you plant Merlot here, it's going to 380.
Okay.
Not 380, but 365 easily. No, so Sangiovese is a quite high level of acid grape varieties. It's a low pH grape varieties. So for Sangiovese 348, 350 that easily you can have here, it's high. If you move here, you have a 3 million, 2 million, 3 million less. The sand are completely different type of sand because all the deposit here doesn't come from the sea, but come from the lake. So when the Appennino went up, and after that went up the different hills, there was the sea go away from Tuscany, and here there was some lakes. And the lakes take times to lose the water, and the water was lost in the Val di Chiana, in the Val d'Orcia by evaporation, and that is reason because you have salty clay, and here it was lost by the fluvial that was the developed. That is reason because you have a little bit of salt, but not too much, and the origin of the deposit comes from the lake. And the lake deposits sand. The color of the sand are a little bit different than if you are in Montalcino or if you are in Chianti Classico. They are very they are yellow, gold yellow, but they can be also very white type of sand. You develop wines with an incredible intensity on the nose. They are very strongly perfumed. They have a very light body and a very light tannins. Easy drinking Sangiovese, beautiful, like for very, very simple but very clean with a touch of menthol that is typical of soil. And if you have clay, you have the same clay. They are different a little bit that you can find in the Montepulciano hill, but on the same time, then you develop wines with a little bit of harsh and dusty character. So always the best is the mix of sand and clay. And what makes the difference of this part of Vino Nobile, Valliano area, to compare to the hill of Montepulciano is the amount of calcium carbonate that you can find in this soil. That is this one. Looks like rocks, but it's not rocks. It's calcium carbonated. If you broke, there is nothing inside. And that is the reason because this type of soil, without rocks, they have an incredible drainage capability. And that is the reason because the toppest wines from this part of Tuscany come from the mix of sand and clay with calcium carbonated inside. This is a very precise indicator of high quality type of soil. And that is soils that develop wines with, it's what they call in some areas around the world red soils. There are some very good red soils in many different areas around the world that are considered the best area for certain type of variety. There are type of soil that they tend to postpone the harvest. There are type of soils that they develop a combination of red cherry, plum, but also you have a lot of balsamic profile, a lot of menthol, and the tannins are velvety and silky tannins, but there is an incredible amount of tannins, and that is the reason because are typical type of wine with an incredible ageability potential. So,
which one is that, Andrea? Is that the first one?
It's number 4. So right now I want to explain only the last type of soil. That is the number 2, the number 1, that is a conglomerato del Chianti Classico. It's a mix of alberese and sand. The second one, it's a type of soil that is in the middle between old type of soil and a young type of soil. And it is a very interesting type of soil because this is the typical type of soil to develop a very fresh, fruity Sangiovese in Chianti Classico with a very high amount, and you start to have this feeling of minerality thanks to the Galestro compound. If you can focus on the soil, so the first one is a wine that is made in conglomerato del Chianti Classico, where you have a Breccioline and alberese. The second one is a very pure alberese, and there is also Galestro, because what makes special San Leonino is we have a lot of Galestro with alberese that is very quite unique to find in Tuscany. So this is the Galestro of alberese, and this is the Galestro of, so both they are Galestro. So pay attention that when people say, I have a Galestro from what? From alberese or from Flish? Because they make a completely different type of wines. This is you can broke by hands. It's a beautiful type of soil. You can easily broke. It's made by sand and clay, and this is made by sand and clay on the same, but it's a different, completely different, and you cannot broke. You can easily be cutted by this type of soil. They are both Galestro, but completely different type of wines. The
first
third
one was alberese, which you broke.
No, it's
First one was
Flish, but you have in the presentation. So I'll ask because just before go there, sorry about that. I want to show. Yeah. No, wait a moment. I want just to show the different areas of. I tried to develop also some maps where you can find the different type of soils. You can have this is the Chianti Classico, and I tried to represent the most important problem of Chianti Classico by the most frequent type of soil that you can have. In Castelnuovo Bernardinga you have the sand, so type of soil that you can easily see like in number 2. They are older than this type of sand, but very similar. In Gaiola it's mostly alberese, like in Castellina. In Rada also. In Volpaia, that is a very precise area, you have the typical macigno. In Lamole you have the large rocks. Balsano is flesh, Breve is flesh, Sangiovese is flesh, and after that you come back again to the younger type of soil. So this part of Chianti Classico is quite old, and it is mostly by Alberese, flesh, and Macigno, and what is surrounding and still be Chianti Classico is a very young type of soil, and so completely different type of wine that you can develop. This is San Leonino. San Leonino, where there is the winery, we have this beautiful type of soil number 1 with conglomerato del Chianti. And after that we have Alberese, and we have a very large area of Alberese with Galestro. That is a very distinctive part. And this is how Montepulciano was made. So you have the Lago Trasimeno. This is loamy soil next to the lake with a lot of loam. And this is, you have a sand clay with calciocarbonate in top, and after that you have a level of sand in the middle. That is the reason because before there is this beautiful spot of different colors, because clay and sand are in a different level and they are related to altitude. After that you have the Val d'Orcia, that is completely clay, and you go on top of Montepulciano Hill, that is higher because it is older, because it was an extrusion, and on top you have sand, clay, and also mixed sand of clay. And also I tried to represent Montalcino. This is not a precise map. This map comes from our experience and comes from by telling which are the predominant type of soil that you have in the different areas. So you have the clay surrounding Montalcino, you have the pietraforte in the top, in the southeast part, and you have the sand from the sea in this part. And after that you have the flesh on the southeast part of Montalcino with conglomerate also in this part. You have the clay in the east part, and you have the clay also in the north. And you have this interesting area that we call Canalicchi, that I wanted to show how it was formed in terms to understand. So this is Spuntari, and Spuntari is planted half here and half in the sandstone. That is reason because in the very sandy stone we produce Rosso, because it's a very light, fruity, hyper-parfumed type of Rosso di Montalcino. And on the slope, where you have a very hard type of soil, we develop the Brunello di Montalcino, and you will taste an example of that. And after that, you have the northern part of Montalcino, where actually you have the Canalicchi. The Canalicchi are made with, on the bottom, the topsoil is clay, but thanks to the erosion made by the Canalicchi, the small river, they put it in top of the clay, this deposit of sand. And that is the reason because the Canalicchi has the beautiful mix of sand and clay. That is the reason because when you're talking about north part of Montalcino, always have a look about the color of the soils. And you easily understand if you are in the clay, very severe type of Montalcino, strongly related to the season, because they can have a dry or a very dry season, they tend to be very masculine, very dry. And if it is a very wet season, they are lack in intensity and body because they have too much water, and so the Sangiovese grow. But if you are in this part, and we are just located there with Vigna del Lago, the wine has an incredible feminine part. This is what I like to say is the Pinot Noir of Montalcino, this part. Because thanks to the sand, they are soiled with an incredible drainage, but they also on the bottom the possibility to have water when they need water. And that is very important to understand the growing aspect and the quality of the tannins that you can develop. Okay, now it's time that I need to give up and taste the wines. The wines are related to the type of soil, and if you want to discuss about what you probably got, they are all 100% Sangiovese, but all are from completely different type of soils with different age, and you can understand that when the soil comes from all type of soil, you have structure, you have tannins. When the wines come from sand, they have a lighter body, a lighter tannin structure, and in a completely different also aromas profile. sorry but it's a subject that I think that is the first time that was discovered in Tuscany with this precision. I think that we still work in terms to develop our correct wording about talking about, and that is because we need your help. Today you are here for work and try to help us to understand if what we have the feeling is correct, and also we have the right terminology to explain the different aromas and aspects that you can find inside the wines. It's an open tasting, so if you want to ask,
I want to ask if the wines are all
2017 vintage, 100% Sangiovese, and all the wines are in a big cat, 50 hectoliters.
okay.
I want to be very honest with you, but it was much more difficult than when I told you when I was planning this presentation. So I say many times to all our team today, guys, we are getting inside a subject that is amazing, but is very difficult to trade, and I'm so sorry if I was not probably fully understand, if it was quite difficult to understand. But I'm sure that you are familiar with this type of things, because in some very important regions around the world are very well discovered and are very well precisely described. So just, if I may help you, just starting by the two first wines, you can understand easily by the color, which is the wine that comes from Alberese. The second one is richer in terms of color, but it is as an entrance. The first one has a sweet entrance. It looks a bigger wine, and after that is very light. When the second one has an entrance that is very thin and it has an incredible amount of tannins. And they are tannins with a beautiful granular aspect, and that is Alberese. When the first one is coming from Breccioline, it's coming from a mix of Alberese and clay and sand from sediment, and that is the reason because there's this lightness also inside, but it still keep the florality and the freshness of the Chianti glass.
Said, Andrea, that there were a couple of things that you could not change,
Yeah,
and one of them was the climate.
yeah.
And so
What about the climate?
2017 was a given, and as far as I know, it was a warm, but in particularly a very dry
Yeah.
vintage. And so what impact did that have on the style of these wines?
You will have any.
What is it? Because we've got the soils, but we've got
Yeah.
the climate. So what are we to read from each?
It's a subject that we developed last year for the consortium that asked us, because since 2012 we have all the average climates and all the data about climate. In general, just to give you an idea, Montalcino is the driest and it is the warmest part of Tuscany. Chianti Classico is in the middle. It tend to have some peak in terms of temperature, but is not so warm in terms of Winkler index like Brunello. And Montepulciano is the coolest part, and it is the most rainy part. And that is the reason because we believe a lot in this part. We have one of the most beautiful estates in Montalcino with an incredible potential, but in any case, we strongly believe also in this terroir, because this is the part of Tuscany that with the climate change, probably in the future,